Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner or operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and welcome to our podcast that kind of features nothing but horror. Now, over the last year, we've been trying to highlight some of these subgenres and different decades of amazing films in the horror genre because, kind of the first year, we didn't kind of highlight a lot of those. We did a lot of cult movies and a lot of more modern films, but we're kind of delving deep into a lot of different types of films out there. And one of the films that we're going to be talking about today is going to be one that by the infamous or famous or whatever you have director George A. Romero, who kind of like stayed himself in Pittsburgh for most of his film career, until he did a couple of films towards the end of his career. But I say that because for the most part, he's known for nothing but his zombie movies, and a lot of his other movies kind of get put to the wayside. But today we're going to do one of the ones that was originally not well received, but has garnered a huge cult following, and that would be his Day of the Dead. Because of how depressing it is. And to talk with me today about George A. Romero's Day of the Dead is Sarah Panazzo. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us on the show today.
Yes, I am not a doctor or a scientist, so do not refer to me as such.
And so Day of the Dead is one of those films that kind of got overshadowed by the other amazing zombie film when it came out, which is Return of the Living Dead, because that was much more funnier and much more punk, to say the least. But I just want to say, everyone out there, if you've never seen Day of the Dead, it is an amazing film, and we're going to discuss it now. Panazzo, what about this film what was the first time you saw it? What was your first impression of it? Just kind of take me into that.
So I was originally introduced to the entire of the Dead series with Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead when I was younger. And then after that, I was like, okay, this is cool. This is fun. And then sometime in the last 5-6 years, I finally watched I think I watched Dawn of the Dead first and then Day of the Dead. And then I watched this one in the last year, and I don't think I've seen the rest of them. And I know I need to get through the rest of them. But I get people say this is really depressing, but it is so freaking funny at the same time. And it is honestly probably my favorite out of anything that Romero has done. I know it's his favorite movie. I know it's one of Savini's favorites, but I think it's so brilliant. Like I said, there's a lot of comedy. There's a lot of philosophy in it, and it's just the gore is great, the effects are great, the story is great. I mean, Bub is great. He is one of the best zombies ever. I just really love this movie now.
So I didn't see the movie when it originally came out. I was kind of but I did see a few years after it came out. I think I was part of that generation who saw Return of the Living Dead because it was funny. And I don't think I realized that this movie had been released for several years afterwards. I know that I'd seen Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead because my mother had the Night of the Living Dead in our house. But this one seemed to have came up much later for me. Now, that being said, when I first saw it, I was not taken with the film. So this is, I think, 1985. If I'm not mistaken, 1985.
Yes.
And so I was not taken with this film. It was, to me, it was depressing. It was darker than it was not, for me, it was not nearly as fun as Dawn of the Dead was. But over the years, I've been reading about how George Romero loved this film, how everyone started loving this film, and they couldn't understand why, it didn't get the good audience response that they had hoped. But then after you've watched it several times over the last couple decades, it kind of grew on me, and it's now become, next to the original, my favorite of the film, of Dead films, because it's so much. It was written much better than you would expect, and
Yes.
the fact that the soldiers and the doctors are a little bit off kilter because they've been stuck in this isolated place for so long kind of goes with their characters. And I see, and I now, as I've seen it many, many, many times now, I do get the comedy more than when I did when I first saw the movie.
Yeah, I really think it was more ahead of its time. It really lines up with horror today where it's this bleak universe,
Mhm.
but there is the comedic elements. I mean, the guys have their own little like the Ritz, their little
Right.
slice of paradise in the middle of nothing, which is really brilliant. But yeah, at the same time, it's like you're literally underground in a mine. You can't go upstairs. I don't know how all these people aren't like vitamin D deficient. And it's like 7 years after the previous movie, I think they said. So yeah, it's been a long time, and like you're realizing, yeah, it's not just the fact that it's the doctors and the soldiers, but you've got probably the worst of the worst soldiers left because any of the better people who were out there were probably like sacrificed themselves to saving people. So you've got these very selfish people who are left surviving.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that when because I rewatched it with a more critical eye before I talked today, and that's the thing that I actually did not pick up originally. One of the things I didn't pick up before that I picked up now is that once the major is killed, and of course we see what the doctor. I can't. What's his real? The doctor,
Logan.
Frankenstein. Yeah,
Yeah.
Logan. I wouldn't say. I didn't want to say Frankenstein. Doctor Frankenstein slash Logan does with the major's body. You kind of think that not what's the not Steel, but what's this, the guy
Rhodes.
Rhodes is in this position where he didn't want to be in charge, but he's in charge and he doesn't believe in what they're doing down there anyways. And so he's a little off kilter, and of course everyone else is because all the other soldiers that are left are almost giddy with this weird sense of
Yeah.
hopelessness.
Well, and it sucks because like you see like these scientists as good guys versus the army bad guys, but really everybody's a good and a bad guy. They're all very conflicted because like you said, like Rhodes doesn't want this position. He didn't want to be down there. None of them did.
Mhm.
And they're the last survivors. You've got Miguel who's like losing his freaking mind from sleep deprivation and everything else. But then the scientists themselves are being it's very selfish of them as well because they're trying to work on a cure or taming zombies, and by the end of the movie none of that even matters anyways. They don't actually do anything. I mean, Logan himself is very selfish with taking the different dead bodies and doing all these crazy tests and putting all these people in harm's way. But then even like Bill and John, the radio op and the helicopter pilot, like Sarah comes in at one point and she's like, yeah, you guys are part of the problem too. You're not actually doing anything to help. You're not doing anything there or here. You're literally just sitting getting drunk. And so everybody here is like given up. Everybody's working for their own selfish purposes. And it's just a powder keg waiting to explode.
Now you bring that up, and I like to say that, but it's each little faction, because I'm gonna call them factions,
Yes.
has their own kind of resolution of what's going on. Of course, you have the soldiers, and this is all the soldiers pretty much, except for Miguel, who's kind of losing his grip, who doesn't believe that what the scientists are doing means anything unless they could prove that what they're doing actually means something. Like Rhodes gives Logan enough leeway because he has this sense that maybe Logan can figure out
Hmm.
a solution. Like he just gives him enough leeway. But Logan's ideal of a solution is to tame them so they don't eat you, which um, Sarah doesn't believe in. Sarah wants to find like a cure, but Logan's like, you'll never find a cure. It might take you decades long afterwards. We need a solution now type thing. So you don't always, even though Sarah is much more diplomatic when it
Hmm.
comes to both the soldiers and the doctors, she has a very different ideal of what should happen in terms of the scientific elements. And she wants both the military and the sciences to work together. But the other
Yeah,
one, go ahead.
she seems to be the one stuck in the middle of all three of these groups
Uh-huh.
because she doesn't properly fit anywhere.
No, and which is actually, I think we only see one scene in the entire movie where she's actually doing science stuff.
Hmm.
Because at the very beginning, the only reason why they're out there searching for any survivors in the city is because of her, and everyone thinks that
Yeah.
that's a lost cause. Everyone's dead. Why are we out here? And you're the only one who thinks that we need to find more survivors. So, and then of course you have John, and you have what's the
Bill.
Bill. The two who believes that whatever we're doing, whatever the scientists are doing, whatever the military are doing, doesn't matter, because what we should be doing is going to an island and living out the rest of our days as peacefully as possible and getting drunk.
Yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of the philosophy in this movie comes out because they have those good moments where they're like, this is God's retribution for what you guys did. Like, this is what happens. And it's like, I get it. It's part of one of those things when something like that happens, everybody tries to ask why or how. And everyone chooses their own reason why they think it was. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's very much where they've got their little, like I said, their little slice of paradise where they're just gonna chill. If they need help, cool, they'll go and help out whoever with the helicopter because they're the only ones who are technically knowing what they are doing, whereas everybody else is very theoretical.
That brings up a good point. You are absolutely right. They are just doing, and they make this comment too. They make this comment that they're doing what they were paid to do and nothing more.
Yes.
Whereas Rhodes is completely like, I don't know what we're doing here. What are we doing here?
Yeah. And I appreciate that they try and stay as neutral for as long as possible. And then they're like, okay, well, we are acting as the positive force and safety in the group because if they would have turned the tide and been like, nope, fuck you, scientists, it would have been a completely different movie.
Yeah. So, and the thing is that with this, and you mentioned the whole powder keg atmosphere, the entire thing, and Romero loves doing that because it kind
Yes.
of centered, it kind of came into fruition first with Night of the Living Dead, throwing these bunch of random people together who can't seem to work together, and then of course they all die, and then of course it happens again in Dawn of the Dead,
Hmm.
where another group of people who don't know what their plan is, and they don't actually all agree with one another. We all see how that ends up. This one, which was originally designed to be like, I guess the cap for his trilogy,
Yes.
despite the fact that I know that the original plan was to make a much bigger film, but
Yeah,
obviously
he referred to it as the Gone with the Wind of zombie films.
his that's not what exactly happened, of course,
No.
because he got his budget cut, and I think, if I'm not, and um, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I do believe that part of the reason was also because he wanted to go out with this film with a non-rated version, and so he cut a lot of stuff in order to be able to do that as well.
Yes.
Okay, that's why I could have sworn I
Yeah,
remember.
I think it was like the budget was cut in half and then yeah, with the whole rating system. I know he went from there were like 5 scripts and nobody has seen the original more than 200-page script, but it was basically dumbed down and drastically changed to only be like 88 pages.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we got a brilliant film
Oh
afterwards.
yeah. I mean, it's genius. It's so well done.
So one of the other things I like to comment on are the actors themselves. There might be some times when some almost seem caricature like Steel,
Yes.
but the thing about Steel is that moment where he was supposed to shoot Sarah and he didn't. You kind of think that he realizes what a stupid situation they're in, but he's not completely crazy.
Yeah. He hasn't completely lost it yet, and he is very uh he cares about his guys, as you can see
Mm-hmm.
later on when some of them start getting bitten, he puts them out of their misery so they don't have to suffer. And he really is there for his guys. He is worried about his team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, before we go a little bit in more detail on the film, I do want to tell everyone out there kind of the general gist of the plot. If you haven't seen Day of the Dead, it generally has a fact. This is years after the original outbreak, and both scientists and a group of military personnel who were designed to protect the scientists have used a military bunker to try and figure out a solution to the zombie problem. Unfortunately, after so many years of being isolated and not being able to find any other person or contact any other person, they've gone a little bit cabin feverish. And so after their major is killed or dies, Rhodes is taken over the military complex or the military aspects, but he also doesn't want to. He wants to help the scientists reluctantly, but he also doesn't know why they're still there. He doesn't know why they just don't leave this fucking place behind, or anything like that. But he still has this one little sense that there is a purpose. He just needs to be given the reason why there's a purpose, which leads to conflict between the scientists, the military people, and not so much with John and Bill because they kind of stay off to themselves.
Yeah, I mean, plus there's the whole thing where they've got the corral of zombies with them underground, which are constantly putting his guys at risk.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that his guys are being used as protection for these scientists. So he is very upset that his guys are the ones who keep dying, trying to protect what may or may not actually solve anything.
Yeah, he makes very good. Rhodes makes a very good comment that 5 of his men have died, whereas only 1 of the scientists have died. He doesn't know why his men needs to keep dying for these scientists and whatever the hell they're doing. He needs proof. Unfortunately, the scientists all have a different idea of what the solution to this problem is, which creates the conflict in the film. And after some very interesting conflicts, and of course Miguel, who is going a little bit crazy, inadvertently causes some accidents and some people that actually get killed. Things start to fall apart. And then
yes.
Yeah. And then of course Rhodes discovers the truth behind Dr. Logan / Dr. Frankenstein's experiments with the undead and the famous Bubba the zombie, who in this film is the first sign of any zombie in any of the Romero films at first, who has a sense of humanity to him. This is the new element to the films that has never been explored in the previous 2 films, but does get explored later.
Yeah, because it's not intelligence
Mm-hmm.
that it shows. It really is humanity, and his progression through the movie is one of the best stories I think I've ever seen from a zombie movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will agree with that. Of course, Romero expands on that a little bit in Land of the Dead. Did you see Land of the Dead?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So you definitely need to see Land of the Dead because that element is what is really at the heart of Land of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
So if for those who have not seen Land of the Dead, essentially, one of the more intelligent zombies gets pissed off that humans are now just using them as cannon fodder, and then he raises a bunch of other zombies to go against this huge rich people's I guess fortress to enact vengeance upon the humans who are still alive. And that's kind of like the gist of the Land of the Dead, which makes for a very interesting sequel to this film, which is way in the future after this one. But for this film, because of these elements, and the thing about Romero is for this one, he actually tones down a lot of the gore until the 3rd act.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Whereas with Dawn of the Dead, it's kind of like throughout the entire film.
Yeah, I mean, you get some really good prosthetic and prop work from Savini earlier out through the movie, mm-hmm. because you show all of these different tests that they've been doing on the zombies. So you've got these solid heads with moving eyes that are slightly moving, and yeah, it's little weird, I want to say almost more like the science body horror aspect, because you see that these things are still alive. But yeah, they're focusing more on the human fighting than the zombie fighting at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which is one of the reasons why I love these films. I've loved these films for probably longer than a very long time. Which is why I've kind of held off talking about them for the podcast. This is essentially the first one of any of the Romero zombie films that we're talking about, and I was surprised why we started off with Day of the Dead and not any of the other ones. But interesting. We'll eventually get to all of them for everyone out there listening. We'll get to all of them eventually. But why not start off with the one that is actually the most well, originally was the most diverse of one, but now has garnered a huge cult following, and I think that's because of not only the strong script, but also the actual execution and the cast and all that. And of course, the memorable characters like Bub and Rhodes,
Mm-hmm.
for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, Savini even got his second Saturn Award for Best Makeup with this. And
Oh.
like I was watching his stuff on Letterman where he actually brought everything out to show off some of the moving heads and everything else and how it works and some of his other special effects tricks for this, and it's still just genius. Like you go from what is it? Friday the 13th to
Mm-hmm.
this, and you see what this guy can do that makes this movie work so well.
Yeah.
Because the prosthetics are great, the gore is great. I mean, there's animatronic heads and puppet heads for like, there's an entire scene where a guy's head is being ripped off and as his vocal cords stretch, the pitch changes. It's just genius.
Well, now that you've gotten into some of that, there is a lot of head ripping in this movie.
Yes.
Uh, so that's very interesting, especially at the end. Each so if you've seen the film, you'll realize that Romero and Savini love taking people's heads off in this movie.
Yes.
Which is to say that maybe everyone deserved that punishment, or especially the soldiers deserved that punishment. Only Steele is the only one that gets out without being phased like that.
Hmm.
Which is always if I'm not mistaken, he's the only one who actually commits suicide before.
I believe so, because almost all of his other guys die or get bitten, so they get killed by one of their others.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the handful who survive, and then you've got the whole Rhodes scene,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably one of my favorite. I mean, any time Bub and Rhodes interact is just genius. And I just absolutely love it. I mean, you see Bub dealing with Logan where he's just constantly training and learning new things. You've got the whole like razor face scene where he's trying to shave and he sees his reflection. Then he's like attempting to read a book and he's listening to music and everything else. And he becomes very human, like we said earlier. And Logan is treating him like a trading a child. It is his child that he has been training, and Logan and Bub create this connection that then when Rhodes comes in, you see the contention against Logan and Rhodes, and Bub picks up on it almost immediately. And he does the whole thing where he's like saluting Rhodes because he
Uh-huh.
recognizes that salute. There's the whole scene with the gun where they empty it and he tries to shoot Rhodes, which comes in much later in the movie, which I love. But yeah, you just see this development between Bub and Rhodes just because of Rhodes and Logan's connection. And then near the end, where Rhodes kills Logan because he finds out everything that he's been doing, and
Mm-hmm.
Bub like sees Logan dead, he gets that human look on his face where he is feeling mourning because he knows he is dead. And that's when he decides to go after Rhodes. And it's a zombie who I don't want to say is thinking, but yeah, he's more humanistic. He has a plan versus just mindless destruction.
Yeah.
So it
And
ends up being a very interesting mini plot in this much greater movie.
yeah, but and the thing is with Bub, I think like when you see him find Logan on the ground, he has a little mini like burst of anger, and then you almost see
Yes.
like he's going out after Rhodes, which makes when he finally finds Rhodes much more
Satisfying.
yeah, yeah. So but yeah, I mean, there's these type of elements are very indicative of the characters that Romero has created for this film, because even those little bits like that make Bub a much more interesting character. And then of course you have Rhodes, who I sometimes I hear people say that he's like a almost like a one note character, but he really isn't. He's just a person who's been stuck in a position he didn't want. He has to prove that he is in power. Like that whole
Yes.
scene where he tell at the very beginning where he tells everyone they need to be there for that dinner, and Dr. Frankenstein Logan is the only one not there, and he's trying to say that he doesn't know what the hell they're all doing there, and that he needs proof, or he's gonna shut it all down.
Yeah, and I mean where he like threatens to kill almost all of them at that dinner too, because he's like slowly losing his mind, as anybody else would. I mean, you see Miguel has completely lost it. It's not far-fetched to see anybody else who would have. Um, but yeah, I mean, you see this great falling of what possibly was a guy who was respectable and in charge brought down to I don't know what's going on. All of my guys are dying. Then I find out that all my guys are being used as like test samples, which is even worse because they lied about it. And then they're being used as finger food. So it's like it just keeps getting worse. And you've got to feel for the guy because these are literally his guys, these are his brothers. And you can see from that perspective, like it's hard to be considered a villain at that point when you realize all of that on top of it. So you do feel bad for him at the same time.
Yeah, and he's not always a strong character.
No.
When John knocks him out and steals his guns towards the end, he doesn't have any guns, and he's like, "Oh my god!" He was easily knocked out by John, who's taller and I guess much more physically able than Rhodes is. But you see that he's not like this indestructible steel type of character. Now, one of the things that we haven't brought up yet that I want to bring up, because I didn't see exactly how much it was in the film, and this is where you started to hate Rhodes, is the fact that he is racist towards John. He says some things
Hmm.
that he shouldn't have said. I had it written down somewhere exactly the phrase that he calls him. I think he calls him don't get me wrong, I think a jungle bunny at one point.
Yeah, I
Course,
think so.
yeah, and then he's also sexist towards Sarah.
Yeah, he gets really rapey where he's like, "Oh, well, we can just pass you around and share you. Why should Miguel have all the fun?" And yeah, it gets those are the parts where you're like, "Okay, this is the bad guy." And then as soon as like that part's away and it's just him with his guys, it's like, "Okay, there's this guy who cares about his team." But yeah, they kind of add those little storytelling things in there that you're like, "Ooh, I really don't like this." And the thing that I realized this time, which I was very curious about now, is a lot of the army guys, I believe, including Rhodes, all are wearing wedding bands. So I
Oh,
want to know what happened with that because I think Steele is wearing like a class ring, but almost everybody else is wearing wedding bands. And I'm like, okay, so these people are missing their families. They haven't heard from anybody and they're stuck here, let alone like 11 guys and one chick all stuck in a bunker. Like, it's gonna get weird. But yeah, it's one of those hard points of humanity that like is there in subtext, but they don't expand on too much.
no. It's kind of like the only scientist who seems level-headed is Taylor. Uh, I wish I could remember the actor's name, but he's also in Martin as the main.
Yes.
Yeah, which I absolutely love the actor in. But he always the look from where he is in Martin and this one always takes me because he's got the whole full facial hair on in this movie, and it always just makes me laugh because I'm so used to seeing him as the clean cut little young kid in Martin, so to speak. But he's the only scientist who has a level head. Like,
Yeah,
both.
he's very neutral. Just like Bill is for the most part neutral where he's just like drinking. He's like, "Cool, you guys need something done? I'm here, but otherwise I'm gonna be drinking over there in our mini pool." Which I respect because I think any of us would be doing the same.
Yes, I think we've all at this point in time during a zombie apocalypse, if we're still alive, we'll probably be chilling, drinking until is no more drink left.
Yeah.
He also makes comment of, and he makes comment to the soldiers. Or it might actually be Rhodes where he says that I'll be fucking drunk until there's not any alcohol left. And of course, you have that funny scene when they're in the underground tunnels
Yeah, and the mine itself.
where he runs out. And
And
that's
he's like, fuck it, I guess today's the day. And he just starts going ape shit on these zombies. And it is great.
it is great, and that's I have found that really funny rewatching it because I kind of don't think a lot of for me it's when you rewatch it you some of these moments get funnier.
Yes.
But for me, that scene right there, he gets really like, oh shit, my drink's gone. And then he just grabs a shovel and he starts railing on these zombies as they're getting through the tunnels. I was like, oh shit,
I
that's
mean, anything with those two guys is funny. I mean, their little like trailer park home is great. They've got like a little hat rack where they put their helmets with the flashlights on it. They've got the tiki lights and they've like completely barricaded themselves in so it doesn't look as dark and depressing. And just their comments and everything is just fucking great. Their fighting and everything is great. They're just really great characters who are there to assist.
yeah, yeah. So, what was I about to say? I completely forgot what I was going to comment on.
So speaking of great characters, you've also got some of the soldiers who they're not really great characters, they're just kind of there. But you've got two in particular who are the best people on this movie because you've got Torres, who is Stavrakis,
Mhm.
who is the main stunt coordinator, and he does a bunch of the stunts in the movie. He is known for doing stunts and a bunch of other stuff. And then you've got the introduction of Greg Nicotero as Johnson, and this is the first movie he did special effects with.
Oh, I
With
didn't know that.
Yeah, so this was his first big movie. And like his first time really working with Savini as his assistant. And as we can see, it's exploded from there.
Yeah.
I mean, Bub even made it onto The Walking Dead in a single episode. Um, but yeah, I mean, he learned a lot on here. This is where he met his partner in his current company. I can't remember what the guy's name is. It's written down on here somewhere. Um, but yeah, this was basically the start of their special effects company.
Mm.
So you see this little cameo and then he dies and then all of a sudden he's got special effects galore. One of the main working heads is of his head. Um, so it's genius. I love when you get to have any of the creative people behind the story in the movie. I mean, Romero even comes out as a zombie at one point. So it's
It was
it's fun.
a lower budget film, and anyone who's been following or watched a lot of Romero's earlier films will realize that Tom Savini starred in a lot of his earlier films as
Yes.
well.
I mean, most of these people in this movie are recurring through all of his work.
Mhm.
Even all of the little side actors, they're all in everything.
That's what happens when you have a little company in Pittsburgh putting on these movies.
Yeah.
If you know anything about the history of Philadelphia filmmaking, they did more than just Romero's films. There's a bunch of other productions that were done in Philadelphia, which they kind of went off to too. There's a documentary called After Effects that has to deal with the movie, that movie, but also you see all of these great Philadelphia filmmakers and special effects artists in that particular movie in
Hmm.
Philadelphia as well. So it's a close knit group. They like to be in each other's films, help each other out. That kind of disappears later in some of Romero's other films when he's doing them in Canada for a while, or
Hmm.
Toronto, I believe, is where some of the other ones were done. Um,
Well, and some of these guys got so famous, like it's hard to keep up. I mean, like
mhm.
Savini, I'm always surprised because Savini's such a well-known name, and I keep thinking he's done everything. And then as soon as I like IMDb or Wikipedia him, I'm like, oh, he actually didn't do that much comparatively. But I feel like he did have his finger in like every pot, whereas like Greg Nicotero has like every
Every
single credit imaginable. Um, but yeah, a lot of these people like just kept rising after working with Romero, which is really respectable. I mean, to the point
yeah,
that Savini ended up directing Which was it?
The Night of the Living Dead
Night of the Living
remake.
Dead. Yeah. Um, so yeah, and I know he's now working with Romero's daughter to help make
The
some
tw-
side projects that are based on his work, I believe.
I can't remember if one of those side projects was Twilight of the Dead or not. Um,
No, I know he's part of Twilight of the Dead, but his daughter isn't on Twilight of the Dead. She
uh,
was doing something else. But yeah, Twilight in the Dead is still in the works as of November. So
you know,
be
I'm looking
interested to
forward to that.
see. Yeah.
So one of the things I want to, this is a very odd trilogy of films because they're not interconnected whatsoever. And to be honest with you, there's not really any type of character or story element or anything that connects them, other than the fact that when Romero was doing these, they were produced one in each different decade, and there was supposed to be that was the theme that revolved around them. And so that's what kind of adds the glue to this trilogy. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Gates of Hell trilogy by Lucio Fulci, where those movies don't really have anything in common other than, oh, there's a gate to hell and you're going to open it. That's pretty much.
But you know what? That works better for franchises instead of like trying to bring back the same person over and over and over again, like Resident Evil. Like Mia can only survive so much of those movies. Like,
That's why there was clones.
and that's the excuse they make. Like, I would rather see more stuff in universes, like kind of what Cloverfield did, where you end up
Yes.
seeing these side movies of other people, or like where we just got A Quiet Place Day One. Brilliant. I love it. There's only so many you can do where you're dealing with the same people over and over and over again, and you're just waiting for them to die.
Yes, I have that feeling with the Scream franchise. This, like, dude, they're
Yeah.
supposed to be dead. Why are you bringing them back for another sequel? This is not Saw. They don't need, Tobin Bell. I can understand bringing him back and
Yeah,
bring
I
him
mean
back.
that's like bringing back like Freddy or Jason or Michael, but like if you've got like a whole cast of characters making it from movie to movie to movie, all of a sudden you're like, okay, let's tune in next time, see how they make it out of this one. There's no what am I looking for?
Surprises.
Yeah, there's no surprises because you know they're gonna surprise or survive, whereas any of these ones, like anybody can die. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was like going into Alien the first time where you've got a bunch of people, nobody is the main character, and you're trying to figure out who's gonna survive.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all of these main characters, main cast, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for the rest of the films in this franchise, this series, Land of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, Diary of the Dead. I think that's all of them. Yes. They all are self-contained. I think Survival of the Dead takes a single character from Diary of the Dead to do his own separate little story, but you could blink and miss that aspect of that and not even realize it. Um,
Yeah.
but I do like what he did with these films. I do. It was a shame that there was such a huge gap in between this film and Land of the Dead.
Hmm.
But I think he didn't know what kind of story to make, and he thankfully went off to bigger projects.
Yeah,
Not always
exactly.
successful, but bigger projects. And I think even some of those other films that were not successful are still great films.
Oh yeah, I mean like he's done so much stuff. There's a reason why he's only directed like 25 movies, but he is so well known. Like you can't just pull that shit out of your ass.
Yeah, you can. You can be a Michael Bay.
Michael Bay is known for other things, but like Romero is known for being a good director.
Now that's funny. Yes, he is. Even his lesser known movie like Bruiser, I think Bruiser is an underrated film where it got lots of talk on the indie circuit, but it kind of got ignored by mainstream audiences when it was released. Are really good movies. He has this thing with his characters that he writes that comes through every one of his films, whether it be The Dark Half by Stephen King or Monkey Shines or
Mm-hmm.
Bruiser. They're all
Creep show.
Creep Show. Even his earlier films, what was it? Season of the Witch, the
Crazies.
Crazy.
And then the fact that like Amusement Park, I think, was only recently released.
Yep.
That was made back in the 70s.
Yep. Also a very good movie, very trippy like his early movies. If you've seen it, everyone out there, The Amusement Park. I think it's only on Shudder though. I think it's only on Shudder. So
Yeah, it's a very limited release. I remember that.
yeah. Did you see that one?
It's been on my list.
Oh,
And it was
okay.
one of those things I was like, I need to watch the rest of the Dead series before I attempt to do that one.
I will say that you should watch his early movies because this is that Amusement Park is an early movie and it
Hmm.
holds to those aesthetics. So if you've seen, there's always Vanilla, Season of the Witch. What's the other one he did? Martin, but there's another one I can't remember the other one for to save my life.
The
It,
Affair?
huh?
The Affair?
No.
Because that's another one. Night Riders.
Night Riders. It's the way he writes those movies and the characters. It's very similar to how he approaches the amusement park, which was a very low budget little thing that he did. It's interesting. It's especially interesting if you've seen all of his films and you kind of place it in the timeline of which it was originally made.
Hmm.
I think it's if you never watched the Romero film, that movie will be completely lost on you and like, what the fuck am I watching? Uh, but yes, I do think you have to be in that mindset. You have to have seen some of his previous movies to kind of get where he was as a filmmaker at that time. It's kind of like this film. It's a
Yes.
product of the 80s. It's a dark film, and even though it was ahead of its time, because at this point in the 80s, you were getting more things like Return of the Living Dead, things that had that overt comedy horror aspect to
Hmm.
it. And I think now Return of the Living Dead feels more dated than this film does, simply because that was kind of like the punk era.
Yeah.
And you watch it now and you kind of it's still entertaining as shit, but it's kind of like that punk era of zombie films. So, but that's that's what I'm thinking now. I'm trying to think of anything else that we have not discussed for this film because we've gone all over the map with this film and only touched upon the plot. But I'm assuming everyone will have gotten the plot and the gist of the plot as we've been talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing we haven't mentioned is the obscene number of specific zombies in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I started making a list at one point and I had to stop because it was too much fun. But you get like zombie in a marching band costume, zombie in night dress and curlers. You get clown zombie, fishing pole zombie, ballerina zombie, firefighter zombie. I mean, you get so many different zombies. It's ridiculous. I know, like I said, Romero himself was zombie in a scarf. He
Mm-hmm.
had one of his favorite bands, what is their name? There it is, NRBQ as zombies, and Stephen King was going to make an appearance as like his zombie from like the Lawnmower Man almost, where he's like covered in green, and he actually makes an appearance in the movie. That one does. It's somebody else, but Stephen King didn't have time for it, which is why they put Salem's Lot in there. Because I guess him and Romero are very close friends, obviously, with all the movies they've done together.
Yes, I noticed that too. I don't think I ever noticed that there was the book, the Salem's Lot book was in there. I was like, oh.
Yes. But yeah, so like you want to see some specialty zombies, this is your movie because it's another level of comedy. Like I said, like being attacked by marching band zombie, like you don't see that in other movies. Like you get Shaun of the Dead where you get the local pub people and everything like that attacking, but you're not getting like
Yeah.
people in mascot suits as zombie.
And I think that's one of the great things about all of his films. Even when you're watching Land of the Dead and Survival of the Dead and Diary of the Dead, there are these, I guess, A zombies in the film. This one opens with an image of Dr. Tongue. I don't know why they ever call him Dr. Tongue, but other than the fact all you see is his tongue. But
Yeah.
Dr. Tongue, who's iconic enough that there are action figures and everything of this zombie, just like there are a bub.
Yes.
I know because I have some of them. But it's that thing that when you're watching these, and there's a lot in Land of the Dead. because so many of the featured zombies are characters that follow the main zombie in that film. That there are a lot more of them in that movie. But it's one of those things that even with Return of the Living Dead, people only remember Tarman, but they don't
Yeah.
remember any of the other ones. It's and like you said, Shaun of the Dead, which pays homage to Dawn of the Dead, among other
Oh
great
yeah.
movies.
Which is fantastic, but yeah, like you don't really see any more like specific zombies like this until you're in like uh what is it called? Zombieland, where you've got the theme park zombies, and so they're all in their costumes, or you get like the rules at the beginning where they've got the girls at the princess party and they're all dressed up and everything like that. Like you don't get very specific zombies. Everybody's always in like boring regular clothes or they're just completely destroyed. But you got to think about like there might have been a plane full of people who got turned into zombies at one point. I mean, I'd love to see a mascot zombie just like go ham on people like Mascot Olympics was going on or something, or football team zombies. I mean,
Well, I think the only thing that does that properly in this day and age was The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead loves to have their featured type zombies.
yes, which literally comes from the people who made this movie. So,
Exactly. That's why I wanted to mention that. Like they probably learned that from working on Romero's films and say we had to have featured zombies like him in all of our main episodes.
well, and it makes it more fun because especially on a show like that where you're just like, okay, zombie, 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 mix and match the pieces, and then it's like, you know what we're gonna have today? Train conductor zombie.
All right. So, Panazzo, I'm going to ask you: are there any final things you would like to say about Day of the Dead?
If you want to see exquisite special effects and prosthetics and makeup and everything, this is probably one of the best movies you could ever watch because it is so well done.
Mhm.
It is just a gorgeously made horror film. Uh, Romero's favorite, probably my favorite out of all of the movies that I've seen him do, which is like 6 or 7 of them. And it's just well written. It can stand the test of time. It's not definitely stuck in like one decade or
Mm.
another. And it is definitely worth coming back to rewatch consistently.
Mm. I will agree with you, and I like to add to what you said is because of the way Romero crafted this film, it does seem kind of timeless. Like if you're watching John Carpenter's The Thing, because it's so isolated, the characters are so isolated. You're not, they don't become passe or they don't show stuff that ages them fast, and that's rare. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of the horror films that we watch, especially that were popular in the 80s, have become dated.
Hmm.
And they, even though they, as us horror fans, we love those movies from the 80s, they sometimes seem like they are a product of the 80s. And this one does not seem that way. This one seems to be, and that it could be also because I got a greater appreciation for it after I'd seen it for several years. And so, that's what I like to say about this film, other than the fact that I've almost forgot to mention, I love the music by John Harrison, who,
Yes.
with the first two movies, Romero used a lot of library music, but we'll skip the fact that Dario Argento used Goblin on the international version of Dawn of the Dead. But with this one, John Harrison comes in to add music for it, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And John Harrison and George Romero will work on a lot of other films afterwards. And probably before. I don't know which of the films before they worked together on, but this one here has some of the best music of any of the films in this franchise because of his music, particularly. I enjoy the music generally for all of the films in this franchise, but this one right here, I absolutely love the music. It's a score for this movie, so
Yes.
um,
100%.
yeah. So with that, I like to say let's rate this movie. So everyone out there, we usually rate the movies from 1 to 5, 1 being very horrible, 5 being absolutely great. Where in the spectrum does this film fall for you, Panazzo?
Oh, definitely a 5. It is one of, like I said, it's one of those movies you can keep coming back to because it is entertaining first and foremost, and then it is just extremely well done. It's a timeless movie, so you can keep going back over and over and watching it and catching new things. Like I said, with the wedding rings I caught this time, um, it's it's definitely one of those tops that it needs to be remembered and respected,
Mm.
which a lot of good zombie movies do honor that. And I mean, it's just the beginning of so many good special effects things as
Yeah.
a whole. I mean, it was huge for zombie movies. So it is definitely one of the best go to.
I'm going to also give it a 5 too. It is still as good now, if not better, than when I first. Well, actually, it's absolutely better than when I first saw it because I did not put it at the pedestal I do now. I always put Dawn of the Dead as my favorite for the longest time, and then I had to reevaluate this one after reading all the different articles on the film, and then now this is my favorite of the whole thing. Now, of course, that being said, I do suggest that if you've never seen this movie, you should definitely check it out. Do not watch the remake. The remake is pretty damn bad. There's also a really in name only sequel, which is also bad. Because unfortunately, the rights to this film kind of got flip flam between production companies, and there is a bad sequel and a bad remake with a vegetarian zombie. The less said about that, the better.
Only Romero makes Romero movies. Don't even start.
Exactly. And if you have never watched any of the Dead films, you should definitely check them all out. You can watch them in any order. Surprisingly, it does not really matter. To be honest with you, I didn't watch them in order. Well, until the last three, of course. But I didn't really watch them in order, so it doesn't really matter. And with that, I want to thank you, Panazzo, for joining us on this conversation in horror and talking about George Romero's Day of the Dead. We will be touching on more of Romero's films later in the year, so I hope that you will join us for those, or make sure that you like, follow, subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast app, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to the greater good of podcasts. Make sure to check out our sister podcast, Conversations in Four Color, which is on our Patreon page, and it delves deep into comic books, graphic novels, and manga. With that, I want to thank you for joining us for Conversations in Horror. Make sure to check out some of our previous episodes as well, because you never know what you're going to find. And we are doing this for you, the great horror fans out there who love to be scared. So with that, thank you so much for joining us, and have a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.